You're listening to Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. On each episode, we sit down with key industry experts to discover more about what's happening in the world of learning and development, from current trends and insights to the most valuable lessons learned along the way. Join us for a fresh perspective on all things training and the best direction forward. Here's your host, Leanne Langford.
Hi, welcome to Learning Leader Spotlight, the podcast where we interview the learning leaders of today to help the learning leaders of tomorrow. I'm your host, Leanne Langford. I'm the president of Training Pros. Training Pros is an L&D contract staffing company where we like to say, when you have more projects than people, let us find you the right consultant to start your project with confidence. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today. This is Mary Beth Thornton. She's the Director of Organizational Learning and Development at AdventHealth. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Thank you, Leanne. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's just dive right in and have you tell our audience a 60-second overview of who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, my name is Mary Beth Thornton. I'm based out of Central Florida, and I currently work as the Director of Organizational Learning and Development for a large national healthcare organizational system. My team and I developed a strategy for our learning initiatives and programs to really help us achieve those organizational aspirations. For me specifically, that means my role focuses on reskilling and upskilling programs, educational pathways, career development, workforce development training programs. And we partner very closely with other COEs throughout HR to help promote the growth and development for our team members.
It sounds like you have a lot of responsibility in your role.
We have a lot of fun. It's a dream opportunity to help our team members achieve their highest potential through this.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love to hear that. Well, I think you already started answering my next question, which is, what is it about L&D that attracted you to the field?
That's a great question. For me, I started my career in higher education. I started working at our local university and our local community college. I loved being able to help people achieve their dreams and become more than they thought possible. And for me at that time, that was really helping those college students grow into whatever it is they wanted to become. I especially had a soft spot for those first time in college students. And while I loved my job there, I realized that professionally, there were not a lot of growth opportunities. And I personally wanted to grow. And that's when I realized I could take my background in organizational leadership and in adult learning and really translate that to the business world, particularly in HR. And so I took a leap and joined an organization and focused on a role on organizational development. And from there, I had a series of roles in organizational development, learning and development, leadership development that ultimately has landed me where I'm at now, working in learning and development once again. But for me, the thread of my entire career is being able to provide those resources and tools and helping people think bigger than they currently do, dream bigger than they currently are, and really have the tools and resources needed to, to achieve their highest potential and whatever that looks like for them. Sometimes that first-time college student who wants to get that first degree in their family, sometimes it's that leader who wants to be a better leader, and sometimes it's that team member who wants to grow in something as common as communication skills, but something that's so critical that we use every single day. And so I get the opportunity to come alongside and help people do that.
So that's a beautiful story, and it's a beautiful way to approach your career is doing beautiful things to help people. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of us have moved, when we find learning and development, we stay for life because it's so nice to do something that you get to help people for a living.
You do. And there are so many different ways, even within learning and development, to do that. You're not stuck in a single box for the rest of your life, which is what I love. And just in my career, I've been able to have the same passion, but bring it to life in different ways, which is why it's so rewarding.
Wonderful. I love that. So, what are the most impactful changes you've seen in learning and development in the last few years?
Sure. I would say the biggest change in learning and development has really been the shift towards focusing on skills. I think that's a buzzword in our industry, the idea of becoming that skill-based organization or a skill-powered organization. And I think that the learning and development field is really at the heart and center of some of this skills work. I also think AI has really revolutionized L&D in a lot of ways. Everything from how we design content to how we curate learning pathways to creating that personalized learning journeys that meet individuals and the type of learnings they need, where they're at, and how they want it. And I think that learning is also, I've seen it expand, and I think it will continue to expand just even in organizational nomenclature. I know going back to COVID, the world was completely disrupted, right? And it caused a lot of us to go through a lot of change. And between COVID and then AI, the amount of change that we've been through is not slowing down. And the only way to make it through change is to learn. Because if you don't learn at the rate you change, you're going to fall behind and you won't be able to keep up. And so for me, I've seen really the impactful changes with L&D. It's the skills, it's the AI, and it's really just the integration into organizational operations and business strategy because our business leaders realize that you have to learn in order to adapt and change and transform.
Well, that's quite a large answer, a lot of different things in there. Well, I find the shift to skills to be one of the more interesting things for me. Having been in L&D a while, not to say how many years, we used to focus on competencies.
Yeah.
The shift to skills is a whole new ballgame. I'm like, okay, I really, this is a whole different ball of wax for all of you in L&D still. And of course, AI is affecting everybody's job all over the United States. So, but yeah, and I have heard more and more frequently that business leaders are expecting more in terms of business impact from L&D than ever before.
Absolutely. I
So,
could agree more. There's a lot of change that's happening, and I think we're gonna continue to see a lot of that change. But to me, it again, that speaks to the diversity and the opportunities with L&D because you're going to need people who specialize in all those areas. You're going to need people who are skills experts. You're going to need people who are innovation and AI experts. You're going to need to also have people who are change management experts because all of those are different elements that are really at the forefront as we see L&D continue to evolve.
you're you're spot on, you couldn't be more right. Well, that was kind of a good preview to the next question, which is where we're headed in the next 5 years. So you touched on what kind of roles we're gonna need. What else do you see happening?
I really see learning continue to evolve at the intersection of AI and skills. And even just in the last couple of years, it has come so far that where we're at today, as we aspire to become skills based organizations, skill powered organizations, what we see is that if you have a skills based job description, and that those are tied to employee profiles, you can really understand the makeup of your workforce in new ways. You can understand what talent you have, where they sit, and what talent you need to fill the gaps you have today and the gaps you have in the future. Technology is already there. We see that the technology is also able to connect those skills to personalized learning. So if you have a gap in a certain skill, the AI will recommend learning to help you achieve that skill to make the next step in your career. It's a really exciting process to see come to life and to be a part of. And knowing that's where we are now, I think we're just going to see that continue to evolve. I see organizations just dipping their toes in the water there. And I think what starts out as pilot and basic exposure will become the norm. Just like everybody has Chat GPT right now, in the next 5 and 10 years, this is going to be normal nomenclature to talk about skills on your JDs and your career paths and your personalized learning. And so I think we'll take what we have and really begin to integrate it into everyday life, and the technology will only continue to evolve.
It's it's a great picture. I love that answer. A lot of good stuff to think about there. Who has been your most influential professional mentor in your career?
That is a tough question for me because I feel like there's too many to name. And I feel like I would name different people for different reasons. I look back over my career and I can think of one of my first bosses was one of my first mentors, and they really demonstrated for the first time in my life servant leadership and true leadership in new ways. Then I had other mentors over the course of my career who had really helped me to think like a true business partner in HR and helped me think about business strategy. I've had other mentors who have helped me discover my gifts and my talent and my passions, and then given me the courage to make difficult decisions and take a leap of faith and try something new. And so I look back and I can't say I've had one mentor over the course of my life who I go to for all of my insight and advice, but it's really been a variety of people and more situational saying, here's where I know I need to grow. What's been your experience in the space? Because maybe they poured into me in that particular way. So it's hard to say who's most influential because I'm just grateful for all the different ways everyone's poured into me.
So it sounds like you've been extremely fortunate in the mentor front and having people to help you grow and grow into your career.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be who I am today without the leaders I've had in my life and the colleagues I've had in my life who've helped me grow and become and learn and change. Yeah.
Mentorship is very dear to my heart. I had my own mentors, and then I've done my best to be a mentor for other people, kind of pay back all the help I got by helping people work their way into our field because it's really hard to get started.
Oh, it is. I love any opportunity to help people see how bright the future is in learning and development. I know for me, when I was in college, I had no idea learning and development was part of HR. I had no idea that there was any type of learning that existed outside of higher education. And I only wished that I had known that sooner and I could have been preparing earlier. And so I look back on my career with the timeline of events, and if I can help influence anyone who has a slight passion towards it and say, "Listen, you don't have to stumble upon this by accident. This is something that exists, and you have a really bright future in this space. I encourage you to build these skill sets, try these internships, apply for that first job, and take a chance." Uh, It's so rewarding just to be able to help people realize that they have more options than they knew possible.
That's it's fantastic. Um, well, so we talked a lot about skills already. What do you think is the most important skill to have right now?
So, I think it depends on who you are and in what role. I would say the most general important skill can be agility, being able to adapt to changing circumstances, which also leads to being resilient, to be able to recover from change quickly. I think that applies to the world at large and the change we go through. But then at the same time, I think of learning and development professionals. And I think one of the most important skill sets for those in the L&D field is to really understand business and to be a true business partner because we can create all the learning and education we want. But if we don't understand the needs of those we partner with and how learning will help them achieve their goals, then they may never tap into the resources that they have available. And so there's so many skills that are important. I think at the same time, something as basic as communication, we like to think that, "Oh, I've got that. I took that class. I read that book. I know how to write well, speak well." But it's something so basic but so critical that we constantly have to check ourselves and ensure, are we communicating clearly? Are we communicating with the right intent? Or is what we're saying what other people's hear and receive? And so I think it's hard to narrow it down to one skill too, but maybe contextually, I would say managing change and just the world that we live in. Agility, yes, for learning development partners, probably becoming a business partner. But there's just something so tried and true and classic about we're never going to become perfect in those basic skills, communication or even collaboration or emotional intelligence. We could spend our whole lives growing and studying in those and still have room to grow.
A great answer, and I'm starting to see a nice theme here of the word of the day seems to be change. Well, let's shift gears now. And what is your favorite source for industry news and information?
That's a great question. I love to tap into a variety of sources. I think one of my automatic go-tos is just all things ATD, their articles, their videos, their newsletters. Harvard Spark is another one where if I'm looking to dive deeper into a particular skill, if I'm looking for something on communication, what's the latest industry research say on that? They've got a lot of great content. Also, there's a lot of great content on LinkedIn and going to conferences and just networking in general. I think some of my most valuable learnings and being able to stay up to date on industry news is being able to attend conferences and talk with others going through the same experience. And at the same time, I would say for our organization, we are on the cutting edge of technology and going through some massive transformations. And so, as we switch our systems to all things Workday, is a Workday community that helps us understand how do we apply the latest technology and trends with best practices in our space. So, lots of different resources, but at the end of the day, I think conferences and learning from others and people has been incredibly critical to my growth and development.
Oh, well, that's a very thorough answer. And I know you live near one of the national conference hub. So I assume that it's pretty easy for you to attend some, a couple, 2 or 3 conferences a year if you want to.
Yes, we are very fortunate that several prominent learning and development conferences tend to be located locally, which is definitely a blessing.
I know I end up going down to Orlando at least once a year for a conference because they seem to all be there. Yes. Yeah, I think I'm going to be attending the Learning Leadership by Learning Guild.
Yes, I've been there the last 2 years. It's a
Yep.
great one.
Yep. It's going to be there in about 2.5 months and I'll be back. I enjoy it every time I go. Um, what is one book that everyone wanting to move into L&D leadership should read?
So I have an answer that's probably a little non-traditional here, but I think one of my best books to help me grow as a learning and development professional is called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And Chris Voss is an FBI hostage negotiator. And so he worked with the FBI for a number of years and wanted to understand how did the practices the FBI used in hostage situations, how did that apply? Why was it successful? And how could you apply that to things like business or even parenting styles when you're negotiating with your children, what bedtime is? And the idea is at the heart of negotiation is really communication and emotional intelligence because old negotiation styles focused on logic. And then, as research has shown, the field has changed. We know that people are emotional beings. And so, when you communicate with others, you really have to focus on the person, the logic, yes, but also the emotions they bring into that space. And I think as an L&D leader, as you are working to influence other people, that's really at the heart of what you're doing is being able to practice communication, practice emotional intelligence, connect your learning and development strategies to business strategies. And while negotiation might have a negative connotation, really it's just another word for understanding how to work with people. And especially when you're in the learning and development field, you may find that learning is not everyone's first priority. We may not want to accept or understand that, but sometimes our business leaders may not mark this as number one. And so, as you're working to build strategies to help their team members grow and be more productive, better team members and meet their goals, you want to help have that ability to understand where they're coming from, read their emotions, and influence them as well. And so, I have found that Never Split the Difference is one I have read multiple different times just because it really helps me work with other people best from an emotional intelligence standpoint.
I can't wait to add that to my reading list. I've not read that one, but it sounds really interesting. And you really piqued my interest about the negotiating with kids and all that because I was like, I didn't so much negotiate with them as, yeah, I just, this is it. This is bedtime.
It works though. I remember the first time I was reading it, I was coming home. I live in Florida, and I was coming home from Alaska from a cruise, and our flight got canceled. Turned out they ended up being canceled over a series of 4 days, and so I was reading this book and thought it was a perfect chance to practice my influence skills. So I actually was able to bring in some of the tactics recommended in the book and talk to a customer service rep and negotiate my way into an earlier flight instead of being delayed for longer. So that's where you think of negotiation, you think of SBI hostage situation, but it's really just how to work with people. Because when you show up, that person is stressed out, right? Everyone's angry with them. If you show up with empathy, you show up with understanding, you show up with clarity, you're going to set yourself apart and you can help each other be successful and find those win-win situations. And I think in L&D, when the world is changing, when the world is crazy, you want to find those win-win situations. And sure, it's negotiation, but really it's influence and communication and emotional intelligence.
Sounds like a great book. Well, Mary Beth, you have been an amazing guest today. You shared a lot of really good insights, and I appreciate your time. As our thank you to you, I'm going to plant 5 trees in your name. Our charity at Turning Pros is that we plant trees around the world. We've planted 5,000 trees to date, and we're going to do 5 more in your name. We've been doing a lot of planting after the fires that have been in the U.S., and pretty soon we'll probably be planting to help with the flooding in Texas. So we just like to make sure that we're helping rebuild the environment.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you are having them planted instead of me attempting to do that, because it has a stronger likelihood of growing and thriving than if I were to try to plant the tree. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're well, we're doing it as part of a mass planting, so, thousands of trees going in, and we're doing 5 of them for you. So, well, Mary Beth, thank you so much for joining us. That is it for this week's episode of Learning Leader Spotlight. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we hope you join us again next week to hear from another learning leader in another industry.
Thank you for the opportunity, Leanne. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review.